Welcome to the Dr. Nikki Starr Show, a podcast to support you in your spiritual awakening and personal development. As a spiritual teacher, healer, and intuitive coach, my intention is to empower you to live your ultimate potential and your ultimate life. As a former medical doctor and mystic, my role is to bridge the gap between science and spirituality to support you in understanding more of your multidimensional aspects. I share on a diverse range of topics, and it's all to support your greatest becoming. My mission is to continue reaching millions of people for the healing and awakening of humankind for the creation of the new earth. Thank you for being here. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Dr. Nikki Starr Show. I'm your host, and today I want to share with you about a topic that is up and coming. And what I believe is we're all eventually going to make the shift. And so the sooner you start, the sooner you can really step into the identity of who you truly are. Today I want to talk about Vedic astrology and how I prefer it so much more than Western astrology. If any of you are new to my podcast, I am a former medical doctor. So I once was in the world of Western medicine, but now I support people in living their ultimate potential in a more holistic, multi-dimensional way. And one of those ways is including astrology. And I feel like just like I made the switch from the Western medical model to the multidimensional one that I work with today, the same is true for astrology in terms of Western astrology and sidereal or Vedic astrology. Now, before I get started, it's not really a disclaimer, but I understand why some people are really resistant to switching, because a lot of people have built an identity about their sign and who they think they are and their rising and their moon. And the truth is it'll change. It will change for most people when you go into Vedic astrology. But it's what is written in the sky and in the stars. So what do I mean by that? Well, since the invention of the star app, the app where you take your phone and you put it to the sky and it tells you where things are in the sky, Vedic and sidereal astrology matches that. So for example, when they say the moon is in Leo, when you take the star app and you look up at the sky, the moon is in Leo. This is Vedic and sidereal astrology. Western astrology has a mathematical miscalculation, so it is not correct. So it'll say that the moon is in Cancer when it's really in Leo. And you'll put it to the sky and it'll say Leo, right? So what happens is you will switch to the sign before in Vedic. So it'll actually say moon in Virgo, right? So you'll switch to the sign before. If you are a cusp or at the end of a sign, you will stay that sign. But there's a miscalculation. And so how could we be basing our lives on a miscalculation? So what I feel from an energetic perspective, the difference between Vedic and Western astrology. Western astrology is old paradigm. It was true. It was true for the time period it was being used for. But now, Vedic astrology is new paradigm astrology. This is what we're stepping into. This is our highest potential self. So for example, I was a Cancer double Virgo in Western astrology. Since my birthday is July 20, I was on the cusp. So I stayed Cancer sun sign in Vedic, but I changed to a double Leo. And that's who I am. And in Vedic, actually, I'm going to share this inside the bonus content. You end up looking at things also the way you read your chart and read the importance of things in a different way. Some things stay the same, but some things change. So in terms of like what you identify as like your main self, it's different in Vedic and Western astrology. The planets that are important are kind of different. And I feel that a lot of people have resistance, like I said, because they develop their whole identity, but it's like who you're becoming. So aren't you curious to know? And without all like, and I feel like even the miscalculation that like is making the sign be off from the sky, it's like, to me, that's like beyond science. It's like, it is what is. Like, how can you not switch to Vedic? Like, how could you look at Western astrology ever again? It's like you take, like, you take the app, you look at the sky, like, that's where the moon is. That's where the sun, that's where the constellation is. Like, how could we not use it? To me, it's just like, no way you can go back. It's like living a lie. And what I have found too is when I've supported people to, been there when they looked up their sign, I'm like, this makes so much sense. This is who you are. So I like looking at astrology in general because I do feel that the transits and the times and the moon and all the different planets, they really do affect our life here. We are affected by gravity. So if we're affected by the gravitational pull of the earth, we're absolutely going to be affected by the gravitational pull of all the other planets. And this is wisdom that has been around for thousands of years and continues to be around. So, for any of the naysayers, something that is true withstands the test of time. So, if astrology is still being used today, and it was used thousands of years ago, you better believe that it has an impact on who we are as humans. And it's fascinating that when certain transits happen, if you listen to certain astrologies, they tell you the last time this transit happened, this is what happened in history. So we actually, like, almost like a scientific proof or research, we can actually look at events and then compare it. So for example, right now we are in eclipse season. Oh, actually, we just finished it. But eclipse season happens like twice a year. And during that time, it's good to know what's happening because even if it's a placebo, I feel that if you know it's an eclipse time, it helps you to end things and it helps you to begin things. It's an excuse for a new moment. Even though every day can be a new moment, it's an even better excuse. And it's like the weather that it can support you in what you want to create and do. So just like we know when it's Venus retrograde or when we know it's Mercury retrograde, all right, if it's Mercury retrograde, we know that there's going to be some communication stuff, some technology stuff. So if you have a communication or a technology mishap, you have compassion. You're like, oh, it's Mercury retrograde. It doesn't mean that you don't live your life. It's just like, oh, okay, I have compassion for that. I'm not going to freak out about it. And then you do the best you can. And then the same when Venus is retrograde, we know that love, relationships, money are up for to be looked at, to be reevaluated. So if breakups happen in that time, or if an ex comes back in that time, we're like, oh, okay, yeah, it's Venus retrograde. Makes sense. Right? So it can help us to have more compassion for our lives when we understand certain transits. And I have found, like, for example, the place where Neptune has been in my chart for like the past 2 to 3 years and where it will continue to be for the next 2 to 3 years kind of confuses things. It's almost like I'm looking at life through a rose-colored lens. So then that lets me know, oh, okay, I have to be mindful to not just like listen to words, but to see actions, right? Because I'm susceptible to being disillusioned in this period of where Neptune is in my chart, right? And it's been fascinating too to see how people, you can find love with astrology. We can see if people were a part of our past life or if we have a lot of karma with them, right? So we can even see how we'll work relationally with people, whether it's romantic, whether it's in a business, etc. So I find that it's a tool. We don't have to use it blindly, but it's a tool that can become like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Of course, we want to be mindful of that, but it also helps us build compassion. So if we have like a lot of Mars energy with someone, we know that if we don't direct our energy in the proper way, we can maybe have some conflict or disagreements or battles. But also that Mars energy could be really powerful for co-creation. So then you just know, okay, I need to really channel my energy with this person in a constructive, productive way. So I feel like it really helps us. And I've always found that, maybe there's certain signs, and sometimes when you know someone's sign, then you can have compassion for how they are. And what I love about Vedic astrology too, compared to Western astrology, is it doesn't go just based on the main signs like Taurus, Capricorn, Gemini, Scorpio, Leo, Cancer, right? It doesn't go only based on that. It has nakshatras, which are stars. So there's about 3 stars underneath each sign, and each star has unique traits and qualities and characteristics. So it gets even more specific in terms of who you are based on, I should say, what your propensity is based on the star that you were born under. And then you can learn more about yourself. I feel that for some reason, when people get their astrology reading, they get their human design reading, when they begin to learn more about themselves. So also I always recommend you getting your gene keys or your human design reading, which also in the calculation does take into account astrology. It helps you to learn more about where you are. And gene keys and human design is more of like who you are through your lifetime. Whereas astrology lets you know, like in the right now moment, this is the best time to be doing this. You don't want to do this. This is your time of transformation, etc. Like it can just get so specific. So I once heard this quote of like, millionaires don't use astrology, but billionaires do. So even like knowing when is the best time to invest, right? And make certain decisions or not make certain decisions. When is the best time to sign a contract? When is not a good time to sign a contract, right? Or if you have to sign it, you know that this is a time you have to be extra careful and really read the fine print. So to me, it's like pretty cool, right? And so I feel like most of my audience, you're already into astrology, but over the years, I've had certain, because I am a bridge between science and spirituality. I am a bridge between what's in the masses and what's more in the spiritual realm. So sometimes because of my MD, I feel like I do attract people that haven't been fully sold on spirituality or on astrology or any of these tools. But I'm here to remind you that let's be spiritual researchers. And so even if you don't believe it, even though in like places like India or where, Vedic astrology has been around forever, right? Like since the beginning of time, or as long as people can remember, thousands of years. So for them, it's like a science. Like they really believe it like a science because there it is. There's the planet in the sky. That's where that planet is trining and conjunct that one. And when that happens, this happens. And then they see the events that happen in the world. And it's like, look, it's proof. So for them, it's a science. It's proven, right? Western society, I should say, has lost touch with a lot of the wisdom of the ages. But what's so cool is it's coming back, even things like Chinese medicine, even herbology and a lot of the naturopathic ways are coming back. So it's becoming more trendy. So for a while, Western medicine did monopolize, the Western way was monopolizing, but more and more through the spiritual awakening process, we're even reconnecting more with Indigenous. I've always, since my spiritual awakening, have always connected to Indigenous people. I come from Indigenous lineage. So and for me, I just feel like, of course, if something withstands the test of time, we want to pay attention to it because that's truth. Like truth withstands the test of time. In the end, the truth is always discovered. The truth will always be revealed. And so whatever lasts over time is the truth, right? And so astrology is one of those things. So definitely every now and then, especially if you find yourself going through transitions, I definitely recommend looking at astrology. Now we have so many great resources. Like you can go Google like Vedic astrology, and then on YouTube, you can find like so many different Vedic astrologers that are so generous with their time, where they share the general transits and the general weather, we could say, and then you can always get a deeper reading. And I find when we're navigating themes of love, of relationship, of business, when there's big decisions to be made, it could be worth looking at, like, or things feel off, or you're just like, what's going on? I'm not sure what's going on. Is it a full moon? In those moments, it's always good to check astrology, because we are affected by the full moon. And I even know this from when I was a doctor in the hospital. Literally, the psychiatric ward and the labor and delivery ward would be filled with people on the full moon. So we are absolutely affected by those bodies in the sky, meaning the sun, the moon, Venus, Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, all the planets we are affected by. And I've seen it firsthand. So if you haven't yet checked your Vedic astrology, go and do it and just compare it and see what the difference is, who you're stepping into. Like I said, for me, I really think Vedic astrology is like your ultimate potential. It's who you're stepping into in the new paradigm, and it's who you were always destined to be. But of course, we were born into the matrix. I feel like Western astrology is the matrix. There's like a little bit of a glitch. It's a little bit off. There's a little bit of a veil. It's not really the full truth of what is, but Vedic is. And if you're ever in doubt, just download that star app and look in the sky and like, hello, if it's what's in the sky, if the moon is in that specific constellation, like, that's what we want to be looking at and basing our reading of the times on, not just like something someone said before the star app was invented. And I think it's so beautiful that Western astrology didn't take over. Like, it was popular for a long time, but because Vedic and sidereal astrology was so powerful, it withstood even another kind of astrology coming and trying to take front and center stage, which it did for a long time. But now the truth always wins. The veil is always taken off. And now that the new paradigm is here, I feel like more and more of you are ready to receive your Vedic and sidereal astrology reading. So I'm always curious. So definitely, if you're watching this on YouTube or you're listening, I just love hearing people's reactions and insights. So definitely reach out to me or comment on the video what your changes are. Like, who did you become? Like, who are you now? Like, what's your ascendant and your moon now? What's your sun sign now? And in the bonus, I'm going to share with you a few differences and some fun things to be mindful of when you look up your Vedic astrology and how it's different from Western astrology. So thank you for tuning in. Big kiss to you, and I'll see you in the bonus content. Bye for now. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Dr. Nikki Starr Show. Please like this podcast and share it with anyone you feel would benefit. Subscribe to the podcast to receive bonus content, and remember, every Monday the video version goes live on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for being on the ascension path with me and for doing this great work.